say 10% per year, but does it with only 15.26% risk per year.
Yes.
So what that says is that the S&P went up and down 18% per year, but averaged 10% per year. The risk-managed portfolio went up and down in returns 15% per year, but averaged about the same 10% return per year. The second slide is a mountain chart.
Okay.
Demonstrating the growth of those two portfolios from 1972 through the end of 2008. Same time frame. And what we see is that the blue line, representing the returns of the risk-managed portfolio, match or exceed the returns of the green line, represented by the index fund called the S&P 500.
So is the blue line like the top line?
Blue line is the top line.
Okay.
And it has a terminal value of $37 million for every $1 million we started with 37 years ago. Mm-hmm. But the S&P 500 has a terminal value of $28 million.
Okay.
I'll say they're about the same. In most time frames, the blue line, that risk-managed portfolio, matched or exceeded the performance of the S&P 500. Mm-hmm. Earlier, Mike, you asked why don't we put our money into savings account? The bottom line on that top chart ends with a $8.2 million value, and that's a CD or treasury bill or bank account.
Okay.
Okay? Bottom chart's the one I want to focus on for this presentation. Okay. Our concern is how much money can I spend out of a portfolio and not outlive my income? We would expect the S&P 500 earning 9.49% per year, almost 10% per year, could afford to pay out 5% or $50,000 of an initial portfolio starting with $1 million, but it cannot. What we see in that bottom chart is that the green line is hardly visible. It disappears off the bottom of the chart about 20 years after retirement. You have effectively spent down the portfolio if you spend 5% of an initial portfolio every year.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, Craig, I'm going to just give you a little heads up. So we've got about 5 minutes left, or a little bit less than that. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, so we have a lot of ideas here and important information, but the time is very tight. So let me ask this next question then. Why does a risk-managed portfolio produce up to 50% more retirement income to me?
That's a great question. So the bottom chart on slide 2 shows that the risk-managed portfolio has a terminal value of $7 million. That's after paying out 5% per year. So it has significantly greater income potential than a non-risk managed benchmark.
Okay.
Slide 3.
So we want to go to the next slide.
Slide 3 shows that on the far right is the S&P 500 paying out 4% of income. The next vertical line over in blue shows that the risk-managed portfolio is paying out about 6% per year. Mm-hmm. Well, all of our research says that the S&P can't sustain a 5% payout, closer to a 4% payout, while a risk-managed portfolio has less volatility. Therefore, it can pay out more income.
So we get more income, again, with the risk-managed portfolio than if we just invested in the S&P 500.
Slide 3 has a good example of a CD, a bank CD. Mm-hmm. I can't find a CD that would pay 10% for your lifetime, but if I could, it has zero volatility, so we could afford to pay out 100% of its earnings, or 10% per year. Mm-hmm. All I have to do is move a risk-managed portfolio to a lower volatility, decreasing the risk in that portfolio, and I can increase the expected payout from that portfolio over your retirement years.
Okay.
Our goal is to maximize the payout to you, and the way we do that is to build a risk-managed portfolio. Okay.
So maybe we should go ahead and move on to slide 4 then.
That's fine.
Okay.
Slide 4 is just a summary of our presentation here. What it says is that the farther we move farther left we move on the risk line, the higher the payout potential. I put the CD on the far left because it has zero risk, right, but 10% return in my fictitious example.
Okay, if you could find a CD that would get 10%.
If I could find one. So the risk-managed portfolio is the beginning. For clients who want to use a risk-managed portfolio, we can maximize their expected returns and increase their payout potential. In this example, by as much as 50%. Okay. If we can move that risk-managed portfolio farther left on the risk line, we can continue to increase the payout potential.
Okay.
So I think that's our bottom line story about how to manage, about the importance of a risk-managed portfolio.
Okay. And
why clients should look to use a risk-managed portfolio when they're building their portfolio and when they retire.
Okay. Now, I guess our next slide was about bonds. So a lot of people are saying, I can't afford to take the risks, and maybe emotionally I can't handle the market movement and so forth that happens, volatility or whatever, even with maybe a risk managed portfolio. So why don't I just go into bonds?
Sure. So earlier I spoke about people moving out of a scary market, and where they go is cash and bonds. So that is in fact what people do.
Yes.
The slide 5 is a repeat of slide 4, but I've marked the portfolio, the S&P, so that you can see that it's 100% stocks. The risk-managed portfolio has only 70% stocks or 30% bonds.
Yes.
And then I've plotted the bonds on the risk-reward chart there. Bonds have much less risk than stocks, therefore much less expected return. And the more bonds we add to a stock portfolio, the closer we come to having 100% bonds in the portfolio, and the lower the risk-reward ratio we get.
Yes.
So in our portfolios, we have a history of being able to use about 30% bonds and still get the returns of a 100% stock portfolio. We just do it with less risk.
Yeah.
Key is that when we do it with less risk, we can pay out much more income to you when you retire.
Okay. Well, Craig, we're about out of time. So we covered a lot of material in a short time here. I want to thank you very much for being my guest today. So thank you for that. You can reach Craig. His website is www.fwcg.net, and we're going to have some information, contact information after the end of the show. And again, you can get in touch with me. It's Michael at financialinsiderweekly.com. I'm looking for suggestions for guests. So thank you for watching. And another thing, our website, www.financialinsiderweekly.com, you can find postings on YouTube of our past shows. So it'll say past episodes, click there, and we've got them all listed. So anyway, thank you again very much for watching us on Financial Insider Weekly. And Craig, I hope you'll come back and be a guest another time.
I'll do that.
Okay.
I look forward to it, Mike.
Okay, thank you very much.